I'm Tim, the Brand Weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the podcast that helps you grow your brewery, build a better brand, and connect with more drinkers. Each week, I'm joined by the brightest minds in the beer world, sharing practical tips to help your brewery stand out and sell more beer. Let's get stuck in. What up, 24-hour party people? 'Tis I, Tim the Brand Weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the show that brings you the brightest minds from the beer industry to help your brewery thrive and survive. And today, I am joined by someone with quite possibly one of the best names in the industry. It is another Tim. But this is Tim from Brew 61. And when I heard about Brew 61 and when I discovered that they were sending out boxes upon boxes of beer to content creators to get more traction and more awareness for their brewery, I was like, I got to have a chat with Tim. I got to see what's going on and see if it's worked. Because I'm sure there are many other breweries out there who are going, yeah, this might be worth exploring. So let's pick Tim's brains, everyone. Everyone, welcome Tim to the show. Woo, Tim.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm very well, chap. How are you getting on after a manic weekend and a delightful holiday as well?
Yeah, good. I think I'm all recovered from my jet lag, so it's back to normality. I've forgotten about my holiday, which seems to disappear very quickly. But yeah.
And what better way to adjust than come crashing in with a podcast as well? You can't go wrong, can you, mate? So, Tim, before we get stuck into talking about sending out the boxes of beer and the content creators and engagement, for those who may not be familiar with your work at Brew 61, because we've got an audience all across the globe, would you mind giving an introduction to yourself and the brewery, please?
Yeah, so I'm Tim, Brew 61. I'm historically a sort of a sheep and beef farmer with a little bit of arable. We stopped stopped animal farming in 2001 when most of our sheep unfortunately got killed on the welfare scheme. Then after a few years of doing a few different things, I sort of thought that it'd be as I like beer, I thought it'd be a great idea to set up a brewery. So we started with a sort of a home brew kit, about 100 litres, did a few sort of friends' weddings and parties, and then thought I'd better sort of go down more of a professional route. So I applied for my licenses, my warehouse license, which is as everybody's done it, is quite a tricky thing to apply for if you're not actually supplying anybody. They seem to make it as difficult as possible. Once we achieved that, we sort of started brewing a bit more. We went on to a 300 litre kit. Decided that was too small, then went on to 1,000 litre, and at that point we thought, okay, we're actually supplying a bit of beer, we better do it sort of I suppose improve the brewery again. So we imported some fermenters from China, and everything was sealed. It was sort of I think control wise we were able to produce beer that we were unable to do before, so we were sort of happy with the results. At that point, I brought in Ross, who's now our main brewer, and some sales guys and delivery guys and various other things. So it became a bit of a sort of, from a little hobby, it became a bit of an animal that just, well, as everybody knows, it sort of takes over your life.
It certainly does. But I mean, you've grown from strength to strength, and I bumped into you at the Great British Beer Festival, just last week. So it seems to be going incredibly well for you, which is phenomenal to hear. But what I want to talk to you about today, of course, is the campaign that you ran, which was, reaching out to a lot of content creators across social media, I suppose to drive engagement and awareness of the brand. But what inspired you to explore that route over others?
I think we'd been in contact with various creators before, and with varying degrees of success. I think probably being of the wrong generation, I don't understand social media as much as probably my children do. So we decided to go down a route of maybe pushing out then growing the brand quicker than we would have done if we'd have just let it be organic. So we chose initially a handful of people that looked to be engaging with sort of a larger amount of people. on Instagram, and then went out to them to say, or we went out to a group saying, would you like some free beer? And obviously a lot came back. And maybe I shouldn't have been surprised how many people came back when you give somebody the opportunity to have free beer. So once you've obviously committed to supplying it, you've then got to supply.
So how many boxes did you end up sending out, do you reckon, in the
Well,
end?
initially, I think we had actually 60 creators in the beer wood, and then 20 from food. So in total, we sort of sent out 80,
Wow, good Lord. And
which was
yeah,
probably
that
a
is a lot.
larger amount than we actually thought. But we probably should have, I think, reduced the advert a little bit sooner than we did. The update was very quick.
So what did each box include? Were they all the same? Did everyone get the same box?
We had a bit of a mixture. They were mostly the same. We did, at the time, we did run out of one of our ales, so we mixed and matched a bit, but most included the full range.
And so what was the reason behind going, we're going to use the content creator route versus just putting money behind like pushing your own, images and content?
We've done a bit of that in the past, with varying degrees of success, and I say, because I'm of the wrong generation, it's not really understanding social media as much as I should do. We've had various companies work for us, and with varying degrees of success, and it seemed like the best way going forward was to communicate with creators rather than try and force it with paid ads or other forms. Again, I'm not sure all of the different ways of going about it, but it felt like this being more of a natural way to let people talk about the brand rather than us try and push the brand onto people. And we obviously, people say nice things when you give them beer, but it wasn't compulsory. We didn't force people to say nice beer. They could have given their honest. Well, hopefully they did give their honest opinion, but that could have been a positive or negative. It doesn't, just because you give somebody something doesn't mean they're under any obligation to speak nicely about you. And so we came back with a lot of positive results, and our sort of the numbers on our Instagram account went through the roof, and we went from, again, to me the numbers probably mean very little, but we went from 4,000 views to 30,000.
Okay.
So that was dramatic, and it's probably come back to sort of 17, depending on what we're doing, 17 to 20. So we definitely have raised awareness. We're now at the point of financially, how's that going to pay us back? And that's the sort of the bit at the moment that we're finding out.
Because that's what I was going to say. Like, when you decided to go down this route, like what was the metric or the goal that you were trying to move? Was it just to like grow your following online first, or where did you hope to be the result?
I think I've always believed, rightly or wrongly, that we needed more followers on social media. I mean, we've got nearly 5,000 followers, and my thought was that by doing this, we would grow that number, and it has grown. It probably grew by 500 or so over the time, but not as it wasn't into that growing by thousands. Now, whether or not that was unrealistic, I don't know. So we've grown the sort of the views that we've got, but probably a disappointment in a way is that we haven't grown the amount of people following us. Now, whether that will come organically because of how Instagram works, I don't know.
I think it's a very interesting one because, like you say, you go down the content creator route, and of course they've got an existing following, so you've got their eyes getting onto your beers, onto your brand. But then once they've seen that creator go, look, this is a Brew 61 beer, it still goes back to that person to go, right, now do I want to follow? Do I want to do that next thing for the brewery? So I can see it starts to make sense why maybe your viewing metrics go up, because you're getting eyes from the creator, but then the follow, it's still down to the original person seeing it, isn't it? So you've got to engage with them in another way or on a deeper level.
Yeah, I mean, historically, as we've gone through this sort of this journey. Initially, we've got on the farm. We've still got Highland cows, so we've got our sort of lovely herd of Highland cows, and we were posting content of whatever was happening on the farm, and probably less so of what was happening in the brewery. And I've never met anybody that doesn't like a Highland cow. So we had lots of lovely feedback about, oh, we'd love to come, but we didn't probably make any sales from the beer. So we thought, well, actually, we need to market the cows so that it's creating the sort of a bit of interest for the beer. Maybe we've gone too much on the beer side and not on the cow, on the sort of the background story. I don't know, but it's reaching a happy medium. We're quite a unique brewery, being on a farm. We're not the only farm-based brewery, but there aren't that many of us, and we have the added advantage that we feed all our sort of the brewers' grains to the cows, and so it's a nice story. But because it's a nice story doesn't mean that people will, we've had this sort of this wonderful thing that everybody's saying, buy locally. That doesn't mean people buy locally, but people talk about what they wish to do, doesn't mean they actually go out and do it. And that's trying to convince people that our brand is better than somebody else's is quite a strange thing, in my world, of being a non-marketing person.
But you mentioned then obviously about the Highland cows, and earlier on you said you sent a number to beer content creators, but you also chose a few foodie creators as well. Did you see a difference in how, like, the content that the foodie creators kind of what they pushed, or the audience they drew to you, or was it very similar between the two?
It was probably because of the amount of percentage amount of food and content creators. They didn't have the same push as much as the sort of the beer influences or outlet.
Okay, so it was about 80 boxes. Each box had, what was it, 12 bottles in there?
Well, probably about eight or nine in each, with a
Okay, so that's so nearly 1,000 bottles. Not quite. That's a lot of bottles.
Yeah.
Increased viewership, a slight increase in followers, but you're saying at the moment, right now, it hasn't kind of converted into sales. So.
No, our sales without a doubt, we sort of has increased. Our online sales has gone from, I mean, it's all it is a seasonal thing, so it's very difficult to say. We're probably up by, I mean, we don't do massive amounts of online sales. So if we were selling 5 boxes a week, we might be selling 10. So it hasn't increased enough to warrant the cost. But we appreciate that just because you've done one advert doesn't mean you're gonna make a sale. So it's an ongoing thing. So we have to sort of work out what the next thing for people to view, or to keep them interested.
Of course. Would you say it's been more successful than other things that you tried? So you mentioned you've done some paid ads and bits before. Like, is this
I think when we probably first started on our sort of social media pages, we got some local influencers, and that was good. We probably took an eye off the ball a bit, and now we've just readdressed it. So it's been better. And if you look at sort of, this was all done in-house, so we haven't paid any professionals to do this. So I think it's been more rewarding than our sort of ongoing professional fees.
Okay, well that's a positive, because I can imagine there's going to be content creators who've tuned in to watch this going, Tim, actually get a positive out of this. Otherwise, we're not going to get any more free beer. It's not working.
Yeah.
But it is better than some, so that's
Yeah.
good to hear.
And it's and this is my sort of dilemma with social media. My daughter's sort of in that world, so she's sort of saying to me, it won't directly affect your sales, it affects your brand awareness, which in time to come will affect sales. So but so how do you get a sale today? And that's, I think you've got to then go to pushing it in front of people on maybe the paid ads, and just putting it in front of the masses rather than just the few, which I think the beer world, it's a as far as following is concerned, if you're a beer enthusiast, you follow people because of the content, where probably most people won't follow.
Of course.
But they'll still go and buy their sort of, they'll case a month or case a week. Doesn't mean you have to be a beer influencer follower.
No, of course. And when you say like the direct conversion into sales, like, did you do anything around giving any of the creators like 10% off codes to promote or anything to
I think if there's probably that's the one bit of regret that we should have done from the start, and that's probably a bit of knowledge, a bit of sort of not understanding how it all works. And if in looking back at it, if we say, okay, what would we do differently, I would probably be a bit more, not selective, but a bit more time restrictive, of saying, okay, let's not. I mean, these all went out within a month, so it exploded. I think we should probably have drip fed it a bit more, and then we could have done some some discounted deals through maybe a block of creators, and then we would have seen the results a bit clearer, and then we could have worked out whether or not, was it a food blogger that people are interested in? Is it a beer blogger? Is it, a general? And that's the bit that probably, if we had spoken to a professional, you might have advised me slightly differently.
I think but the merit is, it's the amount of money that you save on trying to do it off your own back. And I think you've really got to kind of, I take my hat off to you for just going give it a go and let's see what happens. But it's brilliant to see you've learned from it, and you know that there is an evolution from what you could do next if you choose.
I think there's definitely this. It's not something you look back and say, well, we've just wasted X amount, because it's, without a doubt, it isn't a waste. It's even we have to readdress something. We can't do, if it's a waste only. I think if we say, okay, that was a failure, let's not go further forward. We have to now say, okay, we've got some awareness, let's now build on it and do something slightly differently. And maybe we just sort of start making the sort of all of that sort of previous content work a bit harder, and say, we'll put some discount out there, we'll do some other stories, we'll do something different.
And have you started to look at what that would look like, kind of the next phases, or is that what is next for Brew 61 in the like digital marketing?
Yeah, I think there's the way this sort of the world is, as far as online delivery is, it's the cost. We're trying to look at the cost of the actual, of how much the packaged goods cost us to get out there. I mean, when we first started, it was probably half the price that it is now, and we're getting a few. When you send out quite a few, we had quite a few breakages, quite a few non-deliveries, which makes the pain even harder. You've got to send it out twice. So we are looking at that now. We're trying to reduce it because people don't want to pay for delivered. They don't want to pay for the delivery. They want the beer to arrive on the doorstep. And that cost has to be covered somewhere. So that's where we're looking at, how do we improve our delivery to the customer and still make something.
Because that's one thing I've always wondered, that there's a number of breweries I've spoken to, and it is you don't want the product to arrive damaged and of course make its way back to the brewery. So it's that cost offset of investing in the packaging and like the double lined and the dividers versus the risk of it not getting there.
Yeah.
And is that one of those pieces that you're contemplating right now? Do we put a little bit more money behind the packaging?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a strange one because we do a we supply a sort of a big restaurant chain in Birmingham, and the delivery company, what they've asked us, they don't want packaging. They've just said, look, packaging is a waste, so we'd prefer it unpackaged. And with the agreement of the delivery company, we send our boxes, we send our packaged beer out just in a shrimp, just as it comes from the bottling factory. So it comes shrink wrapped with a label on the top of it, and we get zero breakage from these.
But you know what? I can see. Well, you can see it's fragile, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, and this is so you've got to get, and also I suppose if it's unpackaged, the delivery man knows he's got a load of glass and beer to clear up in his van, and probably all the other damaged items that he's done. So, and I think I'd almost say without failing that with this company we have zero breakage, and we don't spend any money on packaging, so it can be done. And all of the amount of money that we do spend on packaging gets to the point where they just throw it, and you see them loading it into their van. They'll throw it in like your typical airport porter throwing your suitcase into the back of the plane or into the truck, and that's the issue perhaps we face. And you start thinking, how do we, and it could be up to 10% sort of failure on especially on busy times, if you start looking at Christmas time. So that's we've got to if we're going to go down the route of home deliveries, we've got to address that. I mean, Amazon have got it sorted; they get very little failures, but as a small brew, we've got to work out the cost of packaging, the cost of delivery, to make it all worthwhile. Otherwise, then we might as well just send it out to the trade.
So that's just broaden my mind to packaging. Maybe Perspex boxes are the way forward, so what's in
it's the strangest thing. You think the one that you do nothing with is the one that we don't have any problems with.
Yeah, madness. I want to loop back a little bit just on the 80, 90 odd people that you sent it out to. When someone sent an inquiry going, "Hi Tim, yes, I'd like some free beer," what was your process like? Were you kind of moderating or qualifying anyone? Like, did they have to have a certain criteria to like justify it?
And again, this is probably our naivety in it initially, because we didn't think we were going to get the uptake. We didn't. I think we did look at before we sort of agreed. We did look at they had some content, and they were creators, but yeah, we didn't look at a minimum of numbers. We weren't as selective as we may have should have been.
Okay. And then from the measuring side of things, I think I know the answer, but I'm curious, did you then go back in and go, well, actually working with this particular content creator did work very well? We got more views thanks to collaborating with them versus someone else?
Sorry, you just froze on me then. I couldn't, sorry.
No problem. So the other side of things is at the end of sending it out, did you have anything to go, well, that working with that particular content creator worked really well versus working with this person?
Again, no, because we didn't. The measurement was with only looking at. We probably looked at their site and we looked at what we didn't probably record as much information as we should have done. So it was a general rather than independent.
Okay, excuse me. So I think it's been a fascinating process that you've gone through, and it's really interesting to see the results. I suppose one of the big questions is, would you do it again?
Yeah, but and all the things you've just said is been our learning curve. So for anybody else out there, I think you've nailed everything that we probably should have thought about before, but because we hadn't done it before, we didn't really know. I mean, we historically we might have sent one box a month to a creator, if at the max, and so this was. So we learned everything in one step, and we need to be more controlled. And there's, it's not saying that any of the creators did anything bad, or there was nothing that they should have done more, because we didn't ask anything of them. I know you can't, you can only blame yourself, or you have to sort of say, well, it's we need to lead, or ask them if they want to get involved. These are the sort of the criteria, and we didn't ask that, and that's our fault,
Okay, so I want to try and summarize some of this then. So, like you say, the things that we touched on, if you were to do it again, so that would be know the goal and metrics that the needle you're trying to move.
Yeah.
Know the criteria of the content creator that you want. So they must have over X thousand followers, this amount of reach. Know your pricing and costings to getting those products out there. Take into account breakages so you know where your finance is. Try and break it up a little bit, because like you say, you did yours in 1 month's drop, but you could have actually really stretched that out to several months, and then use it as a way of measuring, say, right, here's a 10% off code, or if you use this code you get an extra bottle or get a piece of merch, and you can start to see which deals work best.
Yeah.
But then the other thing, of course, is actually recording the results from each content creator. It's like, oh, this person actually got us 5,000 more views versus this one only got 500. And I think you were saying, like, the last thing to take into account is that's just one part of it. It's then to make sure you've got other things lined up after that that's going to keep that momentum going. Is that right?
Yeah. And I think the will. So we will. I think the way forward for us now, in a sort of probably a smaller way, is just to do competitions. We'll do free, whether or not it be sort of t-shirts, free beer, but just be a bit more selective, and we can get the figures. We can need to look at the figures probably a bit more in depth, when typically everybody, there's not enough time in the day to do everything. We're trying to get the beer out, we're trying to produce the beer, and the marketing bit becomes a bit secondary. And if you're market led, then everything else becomes secondary. If you're sort of production led, the marketing, and I say I'm of the generation where when I was farming, we didn't market anything. We just took it to market, and people buy from me. And that's the world I'm used to. And the brewing world isn't like that. And that's been my sort of, as far as the industry is concerned, has been my biggest learning curve, is to say, well, half of the market that you'd see out there isn't well, you can't supply to them because of being tied. The other half is so constrained because of the amount of brewers going into them. So I just naively, and I came in 5 years ago thinking, well, my local pub wants to buy local, so therefore I'm going to knock on the door and he'll buy from me. And then there'll be people. And in lockdown, we had people coming to buy beer off the gate, and it was wonderful. Everybody buy local. But then the world becomes a smaller place again, and people can buy from wherever they choose, and they don't particularly need to or want to buy locally. And that's the sort of, I suppose it's just, I'm exactly the same. It's not like, I can tut at people, because we all do what we do. We are buying ways, what we is well, is nationwide. We just we don't think of it, whatever's down the road. And that's perhaps the way I've got to think. I'm just not a local brewery. I'm a national brewer, that I can sell beer to the north of England as much as I can sell it to 2 miles down the road, and it almost costs the same amount of money. So, and that's I've got to look at a bigger picture. And getting my name out there isn't it. Don't call myself a local brewery. Call myself a whatever. I mean, we always had the term, local beer for local people, and that's not. It doesn't have to be the case anymore.
No, I think that's a really big point to take on board, because your regular customer may not be those who are down the road. Yeah, like you say, with online sales or even subscriptions, depending on your approach, and if you go down there, we're going to work with more content creators and we're going to get the name out and we're going to give them discount codes, or it's like, share, follow with a chance to win a free box. You're right. It takes your local market and makes it a much, much bigger pond to play in. But it's a different strategy, isn't it? I suppose it's a different approach versus nurturing the local pubs and the garden centres and wherever else it might be.
Yeah, and that's where I think you need multiple approaches, don't you? You always need your local garden centre, your local farm shop, and your local pub, because they're the ones you should be going to. But equally, there's not enough trade just to think. I mean, we're not a massive brewery, but we're sort of a medium. So we need to get ourselves out there, and the only way to do that is to go national. We deal with wholesalers. Our beer, look at Untapped. Our beer pops up all over the place, and you think, well, how on earth do you get? You've got to work out which wholesaler has sold it to that place, and that we'll never supply them directly, because our poor little van wouldn't cope with it, and that way, it's not. I think initially when I started brewing, I just thought I will just supply, a 10-mile radius, and in real terms, you can't think that way.
No, you're going to have a bigger mindset especially to keep a brewery going. You've got to take the sales where you can get them, I suppose.
Yeah.
So this has been really interesting, Tim, and I wasn't quite sure what the results would be or how it would have worked from when we last checked in, but I want to thank you for being so very open and honest about the process and your learnings and findings, because I think it can really benefit other people listening to the show.
I think you say it was either. I don't think it was genius, but I think it's more madness than genius. It depends how many other mad people are out there, but
some of the best stuff comes from madness, man. Though you don't overthink it, just do it and see what happens. So I suppose, Tim, the last thing that I would ask you is, would you recommend other breweries give this a go? And if they did, or would you say actually something else?
I would. I think definitely, and maybe more clear on what your objectives are, and then you can ask, and so not maybe not demand, but you can ask the creators to improve what you want to improve. And I probably wasn't clear enough. I thought it was going to be a fix-all approach, and I don't think anything probably is. Everything we've tried historically maybe tweaks one element of that you're trying to achieve. Where this, we probably could have asked different creators to do different things, and we could have probably learned a lot more if we'd have been a bit smarter then rather than now.
Yeah, it's a bit of planning beforehand would help on the return side.
But again, unfortunately, we didn't know that.
You don't know what you don't know, do you? That's the thing. So, Tim, if people weren't familiar with your work with Brew 61, where can they find the brewery? Where can they buy online? Where can they follow you?
So we're based in Bromsgrove in Worcestershire. So online we are just sort of look up Brew 61, www.brew61.com.co.uk. Sorry. And a website. Just look at the website. All this. There's a shop online, and we're very happy to speak and to supply all
anyone
over.
And everyone. As we've established, anyone all over the UK now. Tim, once again, my man, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And everyone else who's listened, thank you so much for tuning in.
Well, thank you very much. And I think I've sort of, from your questions, I think I've probably learned more from our half an hour than I did for the 3 months when I was going through this process. But thank you.
Well, there we go. There's an added bonus. Not only is it the listeners who's benefiting from the value, but it's the guests as well. I love this.
Well, I think that's important, isn't it? Because sometimes you learn more from a question than you do from an answer.
You do indeed, chap. Well, I'll let you ponder on those bits now then, and we'll wrap this up. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a brilliant rest of the day. Take care.
Thanks, Tim.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Branding for Breweries. If you got something great from it, hit follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming app. Or even better, leave a review, share it with your brewery pals, or get in touch, because I want to chat to you. Rock on!